is Andre Iguodala, and you are listening to The Morning Roast with Bonte and The Butcher on 95.7 The Game.
You know what? It's a great recommendation from YouTube, as this segment is presented by Boxer & Girls in Northern California's premier workers' compensation law firm, helping get your workers get their lives back for over 40 years. Also, the 415ers podcast, Niners head to Mexico City to take on the Cardinals. What do they need to do to beat Arizona on Monday night? They just need to score more points, I guess. But we'll break it down. They'll break it down. Evan Giddings and Mark Grandy, of course, the 415ers podcast. Check it out on the free Odyssey app. A lot of recommendations on YouTube, you know. Steiny Goo gets Stephen A. Willard Dibbs gets Ramona Shelburne. You know, Damon Arado gets Steve Kerr. We get our Anthony Slaters. We get our Jordan Elliots. Maybe we just have a segment where we'll get a random dude on Twitter to join us for a segment. People are nominating Tyler Miller. Let me just get random dudes on Twitter, random women on Twitter. Hey, call the show for 10 minutes. That's our guest of the day. How about that? How about that for a big name guest? Huh? You in on that? No? Yes?
I just want you to explain to me who's tipping what, because I have no idea what you're talking about when it comes to the 49ers.
When I talk about tipping, it's
tipping on fofos?
Yeah, not tipping on fofos.
Okay.
Not tip drill.
Was that Slim Thug and Mike Jones?
Yeah.
And Paul Wall?
And Paul Wall still tipping on fofos.
Still tipping that.
Still tipping on fofos.
That song was sick.
That song, that'd be this one.
I got the internet going nuts. Who would have thought Paul Wall was onto something with that internet thing?
Hey, man, Chameleon there.
I remember Chameleon. He was just Chameleon.
Dude, he was just, remember that?
I do.
He made millions in the tech world. Millions. Right and dirty. Yeah, I mean, tipping in the strip club, tipping at the bar, tipping at the restaurant. No, we're going to get to Jordan Elliott.
Okay, explain
cousin.
This, yeah.
I'm going to have him explain it to you. Because you've been capping saying you haven't been on Twitter. I don't believe you.
Check my last check my last post.
No, it doesn't mean you're not on there.
I'm not.
You could be lurking.
You could look on my phone.
You could be lurking. I couldn't do that. You could delete the history. Jordan Elliott, Splash Cousin, staff writer at Niners Nation, covered the 49ers, does a great job breaking it all down. And Jordan, we love having you on the Morning Roast here on 95.7 The Game. Good morning to you, buddy. Can you explain to Joe Shasky the tipping business that's been going on Twitter when it comes to the 49ers and Trent Williams?
Good morning, fellas. Apparently, somebody noticed a trend when they were going back and watching the game film after the Sunday night game against the Chargers, and they noticed that there was a pattern with Trent Williams' stance. Whether it was going to be a run or a pass, they could kind of decipher that before the play based on, the angle of where his foot placement might have been, or based on kind of where he was lined up in his stance. And it's something that after much deliberation amongst the offensive line alumni community in the NFL, both current and retired players have kind of said he's been doing it for 10 years now, and he has 9 Pro Bowl selections. So kind of take it for what it's worth in that sense. But, yeah, it's been quite the discussion this week on the old Bird app.
So, basically, people were saying that he was indicating whether it was a run or a pass based off how his feet were set up, similar to that video I was telling you about that I saw on Instagram with Randy Johnson and Eduardo Perez, where if the glove was closed, fastball was coming. If the glove was open, slider. And Eduardo Perez says the guy still has, 4,000 strikeouts in his second all-time in Ks, and it didn't matter because he was so damn good. It didn't matter if everyone knows what's coming.
Exactly, yeah. And I just think, the biggest thing, too, with that I think gets lost in all of this is that ideally, you want to keep a defense guessing whenever you can, but the NFL is really not about catching other teams off guard with trick plays. It's all about execution, and typically teams are going to know what you're doing based on tendency, based on down and distance. And when you look at the 49ers specifically, they run so much motion pre-snap, and they're giving so much eye candy to the defense before the ball is actually snapped. I highly doubt that there is enough time to, have a focus on Trent Williams' left ankle placement on any given play to tip the defense.
So I saw some former players.
That's crazy.
Who was it? Was it Jesse? What's his last name? Jesse
Sapola?
No.
What?
The guy who broke the story about the tipping stuff.
It was Jesse Naylor.
Jesse Naylor.
Oh.
And I saw George Foster coming down this road like, come on, man. You didn't play the game. This is nothing. This happens all the time. So it's been a big, it's always something with Niners Twitter. And this has been the big thing. That's all.
Well, I feel like I missed out on this week, and I'm kind of glad.
And by the way, I didn't know Jordan Elliott was on Zoom, man. I get to see his face. Look at the ball back there, man. Look at it. Got photos. What do you got back there? Michael Vick? Michael Vick's back there?
I got Vic, I got Willis, I got Dante Hall, I got Ricky Williams, and I got a picture of Memorial Stadium up there too.
No, I'm not mad at that. Not mad at that at all. Jordan Elliott here on the Morning Rush on 95.7 The Game. So Arizona, I was watching their Hard Knocks last night, episode 2, and they're just a mess. The way they practice, the way they talk, it is hilarious. Steve Keim is one of a kind as a GM for the Cardinals, but they do have talent. And I don't know who's going to be in the lineup, whether it's Kyler or Colt McCoy. DeAndre Hopkins did practice yesterday. But this is a dangerous team who always gives the Niners trouble. So what's the number one concern offensively and defensively for you, Jordan, when it comes to this Monday night game against the Cardinals?
I would say offensively, it's just the red zone efficiency. The 49ers have a top 10 offense when they're operating between the 20s. They do a really good job moving the football. I think they've become a lot better doing that since they got McCaffrey, which is, why you go out and make a deal like that. But when the field shrinks, they've had their issues. So they're 9th in total yardage, but they're 24th in red zone efficiency. And we've just seen so many of these drives where it feels like they're marching downfield and they're moving the ball really well. They're converting on third down. And then you get inside the 10-yard line and you're settling for field goals time and time again. And while points are always going to be invited, it's almost like a victory for the defense when they're getting gashed like that and giving up 5-6 yards a carry, and then they're still able to hold the Niners to 3. So I would like to see how they're able to respond this week, because Arizona's actually been not good in the red zone defensively. They're 28th in the league in red zone conversion rate. They're allowing opponents to convert 68% of the time in the red zone. So if there was ever a get-right game in that regard, it would be this week. So maybe they are able to do that and turn a new page, and this is all a concern that we can move to the past. And then the alternative is if they continue to struggle, then maybe there's some area for concern regardless of the outcome of the game, because if you can't get right against the bottom 5 red zone defense, then there's clearly bigger issues at play. So that's what I'd be watching for the offense. And then defensively, it's not really clear who's going to start right now. The line, when I looked last night, was -8 for the 49ers.
That's crazy.
That indicates that the starter's probably going to be out. Vegas usually is on top of this stuff before anybody else. So as of now, I'm leaning that it's probably not going to be Kyler Murray. But if it is, it just feels like for years the 49ers have done such a good job winning on early downs against the Cardinals. And then Kyler Murray is able to just get out of the pocket, create with his legs, do something to extend drives that just leaves you sitting there ripping your hair out because you had the perfect coverage called. You did so good on the first couple downs, and the guy's just able to create. And then, the alternative is, even if Colt McCoy goes, as 49ers fans remember, he's not somebody to be taken lightly in the way that game last year went. So third down is really the area that I would watch, because the 49ers, for as great as the defense has been, that's kind of been the one consistent area that they need to improve this season, is their third down efficiency. That's the only area where they really rank in the bottom half of the league. They're top 5 in nearly everything else. The one thing that is optimistic for them on that front is that Arizona's just been abysmal on third down on offense. They're 27th in the league in third down conversion rate. So again, this is it's setting up to be the perfect get-right game for probably the 2 biggest concerns on both sides of the ball for the 49ers. It's just a matter of them going out there and executing at this point.
I mean, the Niners are 5-4. Arizona's 4-6. I know a loss doesn't just end their season, but this sure feels like they're fighting, Arizona is, for their 2022 year. Like, this is the game, right? So I think this one's way bigger than we're thinking. I mean, we're 3-0 right now in division. This would get the Niners to 4-0 in division. This is a huge game for both teams.
Well, Arizona wins. They're right back in it, Jordan.
That's what I'm saying.
They're right back in the race.
Like, this is a huge game, and you referenced it like Kyler or Colt McCoy. Like, I don't even know who I want, because I saw Colt McCoy come in here and kick the crap out of the Niners. Who do you want them to play? Would you rather them play Kyler or Colt McCoy?
I mean, it's really hard. It's much closer than I think people would want to make it, given the disparity in talent between both. But you almost want a hampered Kyler if he is dealing with that hamstring injury, because that kind of eliminates the one thing that he's really been able to consistently stress the 49ers with, and that's his escapability out of the pocket, creating with his legs. But I would still lean McCoy, because I think if the 49ers are able to keep him in the pocket and they're able to contain him a little bit, he's somebody where the pass rush, I think, is a little bit more effective because they can just get upfield, and the odds of him getting out and consistently extending drives and creating plays with his mobility is far less of a risk than what you're going to face with Murray, even if he is 75-80% of where he's at. And I do think that last year, one of the things that often gets overlooked from that game is the 49ers were without both of their starting safeties in that game. And Arizona did a really good job exploiting that by creating plays in space and forcing the guys who were the backups to come in and make tackles in the open field, which unfortunately didn't happen. And that, to me, was the real difference in that game. So I think it would look much different because of that this year. So all due respect to Mr. McCoy, I would probably lean him. But it's much closer than people think, probably.
They got Isaiah Simmons on defense there. And I was looking at J.J. Watt, and I started thinking about Nick Bosa because, man, if Nick Bosa put together the years that J.J. Watt did, Niner fans are going to be happy for a long time. But the trajectory for Nick Bosa is trending up, and you see where J.J. Watt was in Houston. Like, Bosa's right there. It's going to be a fascinating matchup between those two defensive ends. Obviously, they don't play against each other, but J.J., he's still got something left in the tank.
Oh, he absolutely does. And he's somebody where he is, just like you guys had mentioned, like, this is a big game for them. He's been around a long time, and it's not a game where they're just going to roll over, even if it is Colt McCoy. Like, you have to never take an opponent lightly, and especially when it's a division opponent that's giving you a hard time. And J.J. Watt is, probably on the short list of the 4 or 5 greatest defensive players we've ever seen at their peak. Some of those seasons he put together in Houston were all-time greatness, and it just felt like they were on some, mediocre Texans teams or teams that never really, got the national spotlight. So it almost gets lost in translation just how special he was. And while he isn't that same player, he still is a very, very good football player and still somebody that we saw that first start that Trey Lance had in Arizona last year. A big reason the 49ers had a hard time running the football was the way that J.J. Watt was able to wreck the interior. And the 49ers have a couple of guards on the inside now starting that haven't faced J.J. Watt yet in their careers. And this is going to be their first encounter with him. So I'll be very interested to see how that plays out.
Are you going down to Mexico City?
I am not, unfortunately. Yeah, I will be staying in the Bay Area for this one.
No passport, huh? That's what that is. That's what that code is.
Exactly. You literally nailed it. It's too easy to go get it renewed.
Jordan Elliot, I love you, man. Splash Cousin does it better than anybody out there on Twitter. And Brad Graham.
It came at a bad time in the schedule. Like right before Thanksgiving. Like if it was at a different spot in the schedule, I think I would have been more apt to making the trip down there. I love Mexico.
I do love Mexico. It's going to be a fun game. Thanks
for coming on.
Thanks for the time as always, buddy.
You're doing great work.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
You too, Jordan. We'll be looking